Chapter 77. I thought you weren't supposed to play with me. For a couple days, the Sharif avoided me. Not on purpose, I don't think. The larger human with him, known as Nana, would always pull him away. Not a huge problem, I suppose. Playing is fun, but I have other things that I need to do as well. Stuff like learning human facial expressions, and asking August questions. Well, I think maybe as long as I don't get dirty it should be okay. The Sharif answers. My mom doesn't get done with work until the Sandflower gets here. What's the Sandflower? Oh, it's that island up there, the Sharif explains, pointing. Have you not learned all the days yet? That's okay. There's hundreds of them. It's a lot. The Sandflower is tonight. I look up, seeing a tan sky ground surrounded by swirling particles that makes it seem as though the island is constantly disintegrating. Interesting. Every single sky ground has a name? So you are just going to hide from this, Mom? Well, not hide, but... Anyway, let's play a game. How about hunters versus monsters? I tense. Hunters? Monsters? What does he know? The Sharif just keeps talking, though, seemingly oblivious to my discomfort. One of us pretends to be the evil monster, and the other is the hunter. We get to make up our cool talents or monster powers, and then we pretend to fight. But don't actually fight, it's not good to hurt people. We just pretend to, like. Boom. Pew pew bam kaplooey. The small human jumps around, making hand motions as if he was casting a spell, though no actual magic comes out, and I feel no telltale pinprick of danger. Pretend, huh? As in, plotting for a potential future event? Learning to combat opponents of arbitrary ability? That does sound like a useful game, but... if the fight is pretend, how do we know who wins? The Sharif stops hopping around for a moment to look at me with what I'm pretty sure is a confused expression. Well, the hunter always wins. They are the hero. They kill the monster and they save everybody. I take a step backwards, second set of hands clenching the inside of my cloak hard enough to hurt. I don't think I like this game, I breathe. Why not? The Sharif asks. I don't want to play a game where I always die, I answer. Once again, the Sharif gives me that funny, confused look. You don't have to play the monster every time, silly. You can be the hero, too. Do you want to start as the hunter? I blink. Me? Come on, Lark. What is your cool hunter talent? I frown, but after a moment's thought I pantomime the motion that Death Slayer used to draw her bow. I turned my body sideways, imagining pulling the string back, creating the force and tension necessary to carve a hole through any enemy. The weapon I fear and respect more than any other. I'll use a bow, I answer. It's super awesome and it never misses and it can smash trees. Oh yeah, well. I'm a huge monster bigger and stronger than even the tallest trees. Your bow can't hurt me. Yes it can. And so we begin. We fight without actually fighting. It is a complicated system of imagined backdrops and exaggerated movements, where the rules change constantly. Yet the animated descriptions of the Sharif and the fascinating puzzle of fighting a creature that can apparently make up new abilities whenever it wants captivates my attention. I like the Sharif. I like that the Sharif sought me out when he thought he was able, despite possibly risking trouble for doing so. That means he actually likes me, right? He's not just pretending. I look forward to ensuring he won't have to worry about getting in trouble anymore. The Sandflower is upon us before I know it, time passing by so fast I could have assumed I've been in torpor. The Nana soon collects the Sharif, or, I guess it's just Sharif, technically, and it won't be long before darkness falls. I remove myself from the stone structure part of the human colony, returning to where I know August waits. He is where he is every day, getting ready to pack up his stall and return home. I don't say any words, simply moving in to assist. He smiles down at me, and together we finish converting the cart. I ride on top of it as August pulls the entire contraption out towards the forest. I suspect I am a lot stronger than August is, but I am not tall enough to reach the handles that would allow me to help. I have considered using webbing to help pull, but I am still afraid. Humans don't have webbing. Thank you, Lark. How was your day? August asks kindly. It was fun, I answer. Sharif came back. We played Hunters and Monsters. Did he? That's great news. I'm glad you and your friend can keep being together. Yes. I like Sharif. He never tries to grab my cloak or take off my mask. The other kids always bother me about it, especially when we play tag. Oh no, I'm sorry, Lark. They shouldn't be touching you like that. It's fine. They don't actually touch me. They are way too slow. August chuckles. So I've heard. You must have quite the powerful talent. You're very, very young to have one so developed. I'm sure you'll grow up strong. I frown under my mask. I have mostly picked up from context what a talent is. Fancy, special powers that make some humans more dangerous than others. It's little wonder that fighting humans is always so different. I stay silent at the comment, not at all wanting to get into a conversation about what I can do. I doubt any of my abilities are talents at all. August, as usual, doesn't press the point. He lets me be quiet when I don't want to talk. The degree to which he is comfortable not knowing concerns me. I, after all, am dangerous. If he displays such a lack of curiosity to all dangerous things, he will be killed. Stupid human. Though I suppose if he was more curious, I wouldn't be staying with him in the first place. Now I'm conflicted. Are you hungry, Lark? August asks after we finish putting his stall cart away. He asks this every day, which is frustrating because I cannot answer. I am hungry, obviously. But when I say so, he gets human food for me, which I cannot eat. Then he starts asking why I'm not eating and so on and so forth, all of which delves into topics I have no interest in speaking of to a human. Today, however, he presses the issue. Lark, you need to eat something. Please? It's not good for you not to eat. I suppose he's probably right. I've been getting more and more sluggish as I go longer without food. I'm confident I have the information I need to complete my hunt. There's little sense delaying it past nightfall. Okay. I will eat something. I turn and start walking away from August's home. Lark, wait. I have plenty of food. You don't have to go. I can go somewhere else while you eat if you're worried about taking off your mask. I will get my own food. I promise I will eat tonight. I turn and start to leave, but August approaches me. He seems afraid. But if he's afraid, why is he approaching me? Oh. He's not afraid I'll hurt him, he's afraid of something else. Lark. It's safe here. You don't need to go get food somewhere else. Please stay and eat something. I stare up at the human from behind my mask. Am I allowed to leave whenever I want, or aren't I? The old man sags a little, nodding his head slowly. You are allowed to leave. Of course you are. I turn and do just that without another word. Uncomfortable. Very uncomfortable. I don't like these questions that I feel I should not answer. They make me unhappy. They make August unhappy. I wish I could just tell him everything. I wish I could show him what I look like and cry to him about Claretta. But even though I know nothing he can do can injure me, I am afraid of being hurt. Night quickly falls as I make my way back to the town of New Talcy. Over the past few days, I have learned that humans greatly struggle to see things at night. Why this is, I don't know, but I am thankful my diet has not cursed me with a similar weakness like it did when it replaced my warm, safe chitin with this terrible, floppy skin. I am not overly bothered by the change in lighting, but I suppose even if I was I have the route to my destination memorized. The being known by Sharif as Mom sleeps, like most humans, in one of the stone structures that litter New Talcy. Unlike most humans, this particular stone structure dwarfs the others of its kind, like half a dozen different human dens smooshed together and stacked. Walls surround the structure from quite a ways away, a significant portion of empty space between it and any other human den. As interesting as this is, however, it impacts my objective today very little. The Mom sleeps near the top of the structure and near the back, a hole in the stone leading directly into the room from the outside. It doesn't seem like a very safe place to me if predators can just walk right up the outside walls and get into the sleeping areas, but as a predator myself I'm not going to complain. Hidden in a nook by the outer walls, I stash my disguise. I spent a short moment stretching, reveling in the freedom of motion I now have with my lower arms. Then, it's time for the hunt. Getting in close is easy. Climbing is easy. I could shoot a web all the way to the top of the structure and hoist myself up that way, but instead I opt to use tiny spurts of web from each finger like an adhesive, scaling up the side of the wall on my fingertips. As expected, the mom is sleeping within the room. To my surprise, however, another human is sleeping next to her. How fortuitous. More food. I slip in through the window, creeping silently closer to my prey. Humans are like catsels in that if you capture one they'll start to make all sorts of noises. I should probably bind them by the head first, force their jaw closed, and finish trapping them afterwards. There are way too many humans nearby for me to want to risk them calling for more. I weave some simple gags, leaping onto the pair of humans and binding them down by the face before they know what's going on. This wakes both humans, but I have a few brief seconds to finish my work before they're aware enough to retaliate. Tearing the covers off the bed, I repeat the process with their legs. One of them, who I am fairly certain is a man, is lucid enough to attempt to kick me, but he's far too slow to make a difference. The screams start, but not in time to make a difference. They should be muffled enough, and with just a few more threads, the humans are bound tight. I crawl over the bed in my prey, holding them steady as I layer more and more webs to ensure I am not bothered during my upcoming feast. They squirm and struggle, horrified, muffled noises accompanying the creaks and shakes of the bed as I finish my preparations. Once ready, however, I make the mistake of looking into their eyes. I have been working a lot over these past few days to learn human expressions and tell the difference between human faces. The latter is still more than a little difficult for me, but I'm figuring out other ways to tell humans apart which help me compensate for that. Smell is a big one. Everyone smells differently when I pay attention to the subtle distinctions, and I almost always know if I'm meeting someone I've seen before or not as long as I get close enough to them to tell their smell apart from the countless other humans around. Expressions, however, don't require me to understand the difference between human faces. I only have to compare memories of other expressions which seem to be the same among almost everyone. A smile is a smile. A scowl is a scowl. And the wide-eyed look of mortal terror on these two humans is especially recognizable to me. I just didn't care before. The eyes of the mom flick randomly around, pupils dilated in terror as she struggles almost randomly to find an escape. I think it's a she, anyway. I'm kind of starting to figure out the difference, and she has many more of the female traits than her sleeping partner seems to. He struggles with much more purpose, eyes locked furiously in my direction, looking away only to glance for anything nearby he could use to his advantage. With each and every attempt, each failed idea for potential escape, I watch the hope and anger drain from his face, to be replaced with increasing horror and despair. I remember something similar to it on the face of the Fulvia. Or just Fulvia, I suppose. She went through the same thing, albeit much more slowly. I remember her expressions clearly. They started with fury and wrath, devolving more and more into fear before finally resting on almost nothing at all. Expressionless despair, lacking the energy to even hate me anymore. I shake my head. These people aren't anyone I care about. They hold back a friend of mine. I'm helping him. This is nothing like Claretta and Fulvia. These two will be dead before morning. So to that end, I start to eat. The woman is first, starting with her foot and working quickly up. I've no time to savor my bites, as without Claretta my meal will quickly die and become worthless. The faster I eat, the better. The man makes this difficult. Emboldened by some newfound strength, his screams and struggles double in intensity, bloodshot eyes locked on me as I sever bite after bite of meat, juice, and bone from the woman next to him. Not that I have any more compunctions about his distress, as I'm far too busy enjoying glorious food after too long without I greedily chew my way up one leg, drinking down blood before moving on to the next in a gleeful frenzy. There's a thump on the door. Human voices from the other side. Annoying. I look up long enough only to make a quick layer of webs in front of the door, then return to my bloody feast. Right about when I feel my first victim die, the door is busted open and two men holding swords and wearing armor charge into the room, only to immediately get tangled in my trap. Good. More food. Unfortunately, they shout before I can bind their mouths, but after closing the door and layering some webs to hold it shut, I'm confident I at least have enough time to eat what I have available. The two new humans smell even better than the ones in the bed. Since the mom has bled out already, I move to them next. The armor is chewy and tasteless, but it doesn't serve as much of an obstacle to my teeth. These humans struggle more, being much stronger and also tied up standing instead of bound to a bed, but they are dead in less than half a minute as well. Humans can be frustratingly frail, and it's so very difficult to get a full, satisfying meal out of them as a result. I'm used to it, of course, every meal of my life having always left me wanting more. I hear more pounding outside the door to the room, but I ignore it and move on to what will probably be my final prey of the night. I devour the man on the bed. It is only after my feast is done and my desire to retreat to safety wins out against the haze of hunger that I think about how the man's face held perhaps the most striking representation of unbridled hatred that I have ever seen. Tears are in his eyes as well. How many different emotions can that damn eye water signify? Another slam hits the door, and the wood splinters. I suppose I'll take that as my cue to leave. I leap out the window, scrambling across the yard and over the outer wall before any more humans see me. Unfortunately, I'm a bit covered in blood, so I'll have to sprint to a nearby well and wash myself off before recovering my things. That doesn't take very long, however, and soon enough I get my disguise back on, returning to August's house. The old man is asleep, as he tends to be every night. I feel a lot more inclined to rest than usual as well. Something about eating a significant percentage of 4 different humans after such a long fast has me feeling quite relaxed. I'm still hungry, since I'm always hungry, but I no longer feel debilitated. The hunger is now merely an urge, not an encroaching threat. The humans are no doubt looking for me. I had to avoid no small number of them rushing about the town near the home of my prey. Yet here, in August's home, I can rest. Here I am safe. And for the first time since arriving I truly feel that. I make my way into the room in which August sleeps, curl up on the floor, and descend into torpor for the rest of the night. Morning arrives too soon. August nearly steps on me when he gets out of bed, no doubt surprised to find me since I normally sleep in the other room. I have no interest in moving yet, however, still enjoying my rest, so I let him think I'm asleep and start his day without me. He goes through the same routine he does every morning, washing himself and making food and leaving out a plate of things that he never says are for me but always are. Not that I can eat the food I'm offered here. Then he spends the morning carving or whittling or both for a while until the sky is completely clear from the island overhead. It is only then that I rise, ready to follow him now that I know he will be setting up his shop. "Good morning, Lark," August says. I nod at him. "Good morning, August. Did you sleep well?" "I did, yes," he answers, smiling. August is the one who taught me that I'm supposed to answer good morning with good morning, so perhaps he's pleased that I've started doing so. "Yourself?" "No, I did not. But I found food. I feel much better now." "I'm happy to hear that," he says. I nod again, smiling under my mask. I made him happy, and that makes me happy. It really does work. The two of us prepare his cart and walk it to his usual spot. I'm looking forward to spending the entire day with Sharif without having to worry about that mom person, but it might be fun to spend some of the morning with August. I suppose we'll see. As we reach the smattering of carts and stalls that August works by today, a human I recognize but don't know the name of runs up to us. I've seen them buy things from August before, and sometimes just drop by to chat with him. "August, did you hear what happened last night?" "No?" What happened? August asks, looking up from his work. The other human seems worried, and that immediately makes August worried too. The Lord and Lady Tafton are dead. August drops what he's doing, face twisting to shock. What? Truly? How? What of their son? Third Lord Sharif is unharmed, thankfully. But nobody knows what happened. Some say it was a monster attack, others say assassination. I hear they died in their bedchambers. Anyway, they are holding a public funeral at the church. I just thought you should know, in case you wanted to pay your respects. August nods. Yes, of course. Give me a few moments to lock everything up, then I'll join you. Lark, would you like to come? Will Sharif be there? I ask. They mentioned his name just now. Almost certainly, yes, August confirms. The poor thing. Since you two are friends, I'm sure it will be good for him to see you. I'm not entirely sure I understand, but I nod. I'll come with you, then. August, the unnamed human, and I walk together to a place that most of the other humans on the street also seem to be headed. Soon, I see our destination, a massive building, not as tall as the place I hunted in last night but much, much wider. Columns of stone carved to look like tentacles curling around each other adorn the entryway, and inside is a single room so massive that I bet every human in the marketplace could fit inside at once. Apparently, they seem to be trying. The overwhelming density of humans here makes me a bit uncomfortable, but not one of them is looking at me. They all look solemn, many of them crying but most simply staring with blank expressions. We're all gathered in a huge, clumpy line, slowly moving forward as people in front of us leave and people behind us enter. We all seem to be heading towards the front of the room, in which a small candle burns in front of a portrait of two humans, whom I recognize as the two humans in the bed I ate last night. Oh. This is all my fault. It's probably not that bad, right? Eventually, we make it to the front of the room. Rows and rows of benches line either side of the clump of people moving forward, and sitting in the final row of benches is Sharif and his Nana. Tears pour down Sharif's face, soaking his collar and chin as surely as if he fell in a puddle. He looks sad. But why is he sad? It's not like he'll be yelled at for falling in puddles anymore. Or anything else. I walk up to him, ready to remind him of this fact, but something about his endless tears makes my steps slow and my heart beat heavy. Sharif? I say hesitantly, approaching the bench. Hi. It's me. Lark. He looks up at me, clearly seeing me, but his tears prevent him from making a response. I really hate tears. They are still difficult for me to understand. Everybody else seems sad, but maybe he's crying tears of joy. Are you happy, Sharif? I ask. You don't have to worry about your mom taking you home ever again. She'll never yell at you. We can play, and play, and play. As much as we want. His breath catches, halting the tears for a moment as he stares in abject horror, only to have them start anew with far greater intensity. His Nana stares at me in a mix of anger and something else. Something not quite fear. In fact, many people nearby are now staring at me, and none of them look pleased. Lark. August snaps, even his voice carrying that disturbed tone. I freeze, filled with the terror I don't understand. He kneels down next to me, glaring in a way I almost wish was aggressive, but it clearly isn't, and that's somehow worse. Apologize to Sharif, he demands. Sorry, I say automatically, not even thinking to chastise the human for giving me an order. That's not an appropriate thing to say at a funeral, August tells me. Do you understand? I swallow. No, I squeak softly. His face softens, but only a little. Apologizing again on my behalf, he leads me back out of the large building before speaking again. Do you know what we were all doing in there? He asks. You said it was a funeral, I answer slowly. What's a funeral? He sighs, kneeling down again. Sharif's mother and father both died last night, he says. I nod. I knew that already. A funeral is where people gather to grieve those that have passed on back to the Mistwatcher. When people die, they are gone from this world forever. We celebrate their lives, but we also mourn their passing. Death is a sad and solemn event, Lark. You can't treat it like a fortunate occurrence. But it is. I protest, scowling. Sharif has never talked about his mom without complaining about her. Why is he sad that she's gone? August looks at me in a very strange way, one I still can't fully interpret. It's sort of like sadness, but different. Like he's sad because of something I say or do because he thinks it hurts me, or because he thinks I still don't understand something. I'm sure that Sharif loved his family, August insists. Maybe he didn't always agree with his mother, and maybe he wasn't always happy with her, but you can love someone and still be frustrated with them. His mother loved him very much, and he loved her. Now she is gone forever, and no matter how many play dates she won't interrupt now, that is a person he can never get back again. He will always, for the rest of his life, have an aching pain where his mother should be. And while that grief might heal and lessen with time, it never goes away. The people in our lives are special, and all people are special in someone's life. That is why every death is a tragedy. That is why every death must be treated with respect and reverence. He stands up, and holds his hand out to me. Hesitantly, I take it, and together we return to his shop. More and more, I think of Claretta. I still don't think I understand, but as with all things, I will remember his words with perfect clarity from now until perhaps forever. The next day, I learned that Sharif has left town to live with family in another city. I'll probably never see him again. Chapter 78. Rowan. I call out. Hey, Rowan. I scowl, looking over the battlefield where I recently fought Capita. 6 corpses lie in the road, a shallow crater behind them where Capita's implosion spell annihilated part of the ground. There's no sign of Rowan around, but that means I don't feel his soul hanging around either, so he's probably not dead. He didn't run after me to help with Capita anymore, so there's only one other place he'd have gone, the Shock. Unless he's an idiot, but when it doesn't come to gambling the guy is super smart. I assume that's where I'll end up finding him. In the meantime, I suppose it would be a waste not to see what these bodies have on them. I kneel down, hands quickly rifling through the pockets of the dead. First come, first serve. That's just how it is around here. Excuse me, miss, but you wouldn't happen to know what occurred here, would you? After just the first few words I'm jumping to my feet, drawing my spear and swearing up a storm as my heart beats a mile a minute. What the fuck? Where is that voice coming from? There's no one here but me. Turning around, however, my eyes disagree with my soul sense. A figure in pristine white scale-forged armor with red trim stands a respectful distance behind me. The armor of the High Templar. They don't seem to have a soul at all. All 3 of my eyes look around wildly, panic filling me. How long have they been here? Why can't I feel them? Am I going to die? If I can't affect their soul, I don't stand a chance. But how do they not have one? I've never— my apologies, miss. I didn't mean to startle you. I am High Templar Brahm. I'm here to ask a few questions. Hearing the voice is just weird to me. Everything feels wrong, my mind reeling to find answers to basic questions. Are they a man or a woman? What type of person are they? How are they feeling? It fills me with unreasonable panic, and it shouldn't. I know how to do this shit. It's not like I've always had a soul sense. Old skills churn slowly to the surface of my mind, interpreting for my lesser senses. The voice sounds deep and masculine. His posture is relaxed and non-threatening. This person is not attacking or moving to attack. I don't need a soul sense to guess that, as much as I would really like a read on this person. It's fine, I say, swallowing as much of my discomfort as I can. You startled me. I put away my spear, fairly certain it won't help me very much if he decides to attack anyway. I may as well encourage him to not do so. First Capita, now this guy. What the fuck is going on with my luck today? The High Templar chuckles, though I have no idea if it's in good humor, malice, or straight-up insanity. When did I start relying on my soul sense this much? Apologies again, he says. You're far from the first person I've accidentally frightened, much to my chagrin. I tend to appear wherever I'm needed, usually without warning. To that end, I was just getting back to town when I heard an explosion. So again, I feel it is my duty to ask, do you know what happened here? I shrug, trying to channel all my experience running cons with Rowan to keep as straight a face as possible. By the looks of it, I'm going to guess a turf war, I answer. It's a very believable answer for this part of town, and it's technically not even a lie. I see. And what, may I ask, are you doing with the bodies? Checking them for valuables, I shrug again, entirely unashamed. You've gotta get what you can to survive around here. Speaking of, it's really weird to see a High Templar in this part of town. Well, most of us have been assigned abroad. With the Hiveric situation, it was deemed necessary to recall us. Although it would seem things have gotten much worse than I expected during my absence. I must admit, I find it odd to see someone so well armed and armored resorting to petty thievery of the dead to get by. I blink. I guess that's a good point, I mutter thoughtfully. I suppose I don't need this stuff. Collecting it is just kind of a habit. I should probably let some other urchins have it. Especially if my family is getting moved to a better part of town, with Penelope footing some of the bill. In that sense, I suppose my family has made it. They are pretty much living the dream of every kid here, to be rescued by some rich hero with a heart of gold. Penelope is not normally someone I would call altruistic, but she definitely has her moments. You need to let the guard have it, the High Templar corrects. These people need to be identified and their belongings returned to their families. Families. Oh shit, I hope they don't have families. It would be just my luck to create another vengeful pseudo-orphan right after I finish getting rid of the last one. I should have considered that. Still. You're absolutely bonkers if you think the guard would do anything with the valuables on these bodies other than pocket them, I say bluntly. Just leave it all here. Or better yet, give it to the first street kid you see. It could save their life. I wish I could at least see the man's expression, though his face remains stubbornly behind the helmet. Have we truly fallen so far? He mutters to himself. I shrug once more, for it is an expression that serves me well when hiding my heart-smashing panic. I decide to take that small monologue as my permission to leave, but unfortunately, he calls out to me as I go. What is your name, miss? I grimace. They probably have my face plastered somewhere in the Templar headquarters, so as much as I want to lie it's probably a bad idea. Vita, I answer. I'm a hunter. And I guess a slave of House Erebus, technically. I don't want to add the last part, but it does mean he can't legally stab me through the face on a whim, so it seems prudent to include. Besides, maybe I'll be lucky and he won't recognize me. He implied that he just made it back to town after a long time abroad, after all. Oh, you're that girl, he hums thoughtfully, crushing all of my hopes. You're accused of some quite heinous crimes. I narrow my eyes. Figures. You may direct any allegations against me towards First Lord Erebus. And for the record, I believe I was promised a reward for wiping out the Nora and retrieving Remus and his sword unharmed. I've yet to receive it. Unless you intend to deliver that, may I go? Yes, he says immediately, much to my relief. Between you and me, I find the report rather suspect. But the higher-ups will be going through with the investigation regardless. I regret to inform you you will most likely have to deal with inquisitors bothering you in the future. I do apologize. I assure you, the inquisitors are an honorable sort, with no compunctions against prosecuting a High Templar should someone be framing you like your master claims. We have learned the dangers of letting rot fester in our organization. Not trusting myself to respond to that kind of worms, I simply shrug one last time, keeping my face steady as I turn and walk away. High Templars are returning and Inquisitors are apparently coming, whatever those are. They sure don't sound good. If they have some way of actually detecting animancy, I'm kind of fucked. And if I had a secret animancy detecting branch of Templars, I'd probably name them Inquisitors. Just another problem to add to the pile, I suppose. It's interesting that Mildred is apparently not well liked or trusted by one of her fellow High Templars, however. If I'm to get out of this mess, that might be my angle to do it. Only after walking around several corners do I dare to turn my head to check if I'm being followed. Bram isn't there, thankfully. I pick up the pace, sprinting all the way back home. An unfathomable amount of relief washes over me when I feel the souls of Rowan and the children, safe and sound where they should be. Thank goodness. Rowan! I shout, waving as I approach the shack. He peeks his head door, giving a relieved sigh of his own as he sees me approach. Vida! He calls back, scooping me into a hug as I rush into him. Thank the Watcher you're all right. After you vanished, I ran off to look for you, but... well, I couldn't leave the kids alone and I had to trust you would be okay. I'm glad I was right. Yeah, good call, I nod. Capita and I are under a truce, I guess. Hopefully, she'll convince Sky to leave you and Mom alone. If not, well, you and the kids should be out of here by then, right? He nods. According to your friend, that's right. He rubs his thumb across the cut on my face. Speaking of which, you should go see her. I see you've gotten your things back, but you should get yourself healed up too. You took a bit of a beating, there. I sigh, lacking the energy to argue that. I didn't really get that injured, just a few cuts and scrapes, but I definitely bit off more than I can chew again. Not much more, though. Next time, I'll be ready. In some regards, I'm pretty darn lucky that Capita was so willing to forgive me. Maybe there won't be a next time, and I'll be able to trust her to help with our animancy research of her own volition. I don't know if she'll have much time while she's still working for Sky, though, and we need her sooner rather than later. As nice as she is to me, I have zero compunctions about killing the woman that permanently scarred my mother's soul. Capita is insane, and she is a danger to everyone no matter how nice she happens to be to me personally. By the way, Rowan, have you heard of a High Templar Bram? I ask. He raises an eyebrow. Bram the ubiquitous? Yeah, of course. He is a kinomancer, although a drastically more powerful one than I am. They say if you're speaking with him, you're almost always speaking with an illusion. He can see and hear through them somehow, and create them over vast distances. I believe he can even cast spells through them, although that gets more into speculation. He's one of the more esoteric High Templars, and they keep his exact abilities secret for national security reasons. Why do you ask? An illusion. Of course. No wonder the dude didn't have a soul. I saw him on the way here. Apparently, he just got back in town and heard our fight. Thankfully, I guess he didn't see it. Oh, shit. You're not in any trouble, are you, Vida? Rowan asks. I snort. Not any more than before I met him. He was polite, I think? You think? I don't know what to say to that, so I just shrug. I think he was polite, but I'm really not sure. Well, please don't run off and start a fight with him, Rowan sighs. I don't think I'll ever get the smell of burning hair out of my nostrils. Honestly, you shouldn't be starting fights with people in general. Yeah. Sorry. I was afraid she was marching a bunch of goons to take the kids, I shrug. He grimaces. You think, again? Please tell me I didn't just burn a woman alive over a misunderstanding. She's fine anyway, I dismiss, waving him off. She doesn't even seem hurt. We talked it out, nobody even died. Vida, you killed 6 people, Rowan says slowly, giving me a weird look. Okay, nobody except those guys, I admit. That's my bad. But their souls are kind of gross, so they were probably assholes anyway. Vida. The chastisement in Rowan's voice is obvious. Although, maybe it's only obvious since I can feel it in his soul, too. Hey, I gave them a warning, I answer, standing my ground. I warned them, and then they drew weapons on me. So yeah, I killed them. What do you want me to do, stand around and get stabbed? I made the mistake of not following through on ultimatums before, and I'm not gonna make it again. Have you considered simply not making ultimatums? Rowan counters, prodding me in the collarbone. If you're going to insist on following through with threats, then threaten people less. I scowl, but I suppose he's not entirely wrong. It's just been a stressful few days, okay? I mumble. He sighs, nodding slowly. Yeah. It has. We're relying on you, Vita. You never met them, but... Angelian is far from the first one we lost. But this time, you're keeping the grief away. Delaying it. Our hope in you. Lynn and I need it to keep going, right now. So stay safe, okay? He hugs me again, resting his chin on my head. Grabbing him back, I squeeze, tender hand strength going into the embrace. Everyone is counting on me. I can't let them down again. I should head back to the Hunters Guild, I announce after a long period of silence. I'm supposed to check in every day. One last thing, though. Is there a way to extend magic resistance to my stuff? Rowan shakes his head glumly. Unfortunately, no. I've seen plenty of people have their clothes blasted off like yours were because of exactly that. Well, not exactly like yours, but it happens due to all sorts of magic. The best and usually only way to protect your stuff is to dodge the spell. Only living things can have magic resistance, so. He trails off, thinking for a moment. Actually, for you there's probably a way. If it's putting souls into my stuff, that didn't seem to work. I say. I had that going on in a bunch of my weapons during the fight. Even if my shards grant magic resistance, they are probably way too small and weak to resist any spells that matter. If I have to give a fucking massive soul to each individual object. Huh. Well, that's interesting, but not what I was thinking actually, Rowan says, cutting me off. Your friend mentioned that the mana you produce destroys naturally occurring mana on contact, right? And you can push it outside your body safely? My eyes go wide, a grin creeping up my mouth. You think I can just destroy the spells? I ask. That would be amazing. You'd have to overpower the raw mana being used, but hypothetically, the idea has potential. If you put a soul into an object, you might be able to pump your mana into that soul as well, which should let it store some? Maybe. I'm definitely guessing at this point, but it's something worth experimenting with. I give him another quick squeeze. Thanks, Rowan. That could be just what I need. He ruffles my hair. Happy to help. Go knock 'em dead, kiddo. Figuratively. I groan, stepping away from him and shooting him a playful scowl. When are you and Mom gonna stop with that kiddo stuff? I complain. He shrugs, flashing me a shit-eating grin. When you stop being tiny and adorable, so probably never. Whatever, Grandpa. I taunt, turning and running off towards the guild house. That won't work on me like it does with Lynn. Rowan calls after me. I've always been an old man at heart. We know, Mr. Mutton Chops. I quip back. That one gets a reaction, and I glance backwards with a laugh, seeing him pat the sides of his face. Then, I'm around the corner, heading away from my family and back to work. I feel better now. Something about getting teleported thousands of feet up really gave my mood a hard reset, earlier. I messed up, sure. There's a lot of problems in just about every direction. But it's okay, I don't have to spend all day every day beating myself up about it, because no matter how bad it is, nothing so far is unfixable. Not even death. Chapter 79 Breathe in, breathe out. I've heard it before, as a mantra to assist focus. There is apparently something about breathing that really seems to help people with that. Perhaps it's the intentional stepping away from the distractions of the world to focus entirely on oneself, particularly the aspects which are so commonly taken for granted. Something like that, anyway. I can only speculate, because I find the practice horribly distracting. I seem to focus far better when I don't breathe at all. After all, pulling mana out from myself doesn't involve my body in the slightest. I don't know if I can exercise my soul in the same way I exercise my body, but it stands to reason that the more I practice pulling out that inner energy, the better I'll become at it. This is much more exciting, much more natural than most training I have to do. Training my talent has always been a pain in the ass because I'm usually afraid messing with animancy will be detectable by the wrong people. Theodora can certainly see when I'm using more complicated forms of animancy, even moving souls in or out of a body, so it just doesn't feel safe to use in this city. This, however, she can't see. This isn't even animancy, but it's still part of me and what I am, something that feels right to use freely. Filling my soul with power, then expelling it so that it annihilates that stupid all-pervasive mana that I can't even use just puts a smile on my face. I want to bring more of my mana into the world. I pull the power inward, then I push it outward. In and out. Maybe I can use this to help focus instead of breathing. If nothing else, it's a great way to make efficient use of my time as I walk back to the Hunters Guild. I can more or less navigate the city without even thinking at this point, so a bit of meditation shouldn't be a problem. I look inside myself, watching power move as I pull it through the channels in my soul, letting it fill and soothe me. One channel and one channel alone pulls the mana in from beyond my immediate self, going further than any other part of me in the direction with no name. I trace it slowly backwards, pushing my senses against the current, looking for where all my power comes from. Thump thump. The line of power is long and narrow. Too long, impossibly long. I realize that if I try to observe it by sliding my vision across the entire expanse of its presence, I will never, ever reach the end. Like a ring wrapped around my body, I can never see all of it simply by rotating my head. I cannot travel to the end of something which goes forever. But I am not limited to such paltry ways of sensing. Thump thump. Every single soul in my range is known to me. Their positions, their movements, their songs and colors and vibrations and feelings. I ignore as much as I can, because it tends to be too much. For the first time in a long time, however, I no longer feel that. Here, everything is simply me. There's no overload of information, even when I view the entirety of an infinite distance. Some part of me already knows everything there is to see here. Thump. Thump. So just like that, I behold the end. The source of everything I am. A vast and beautiful sea of power and potential. Formless, yet seeking form, the torrent deep within scrambles desperately through the minuscule channel, a massive incomprehensible power paradoxically too weak to send any more of itself through. Thump. How laughable that I consider myself hatched. I'm free from one prison yet still struggling with the bars of another. I tug at this vast blue ocean of my trapped self, pulling and shaping it. It moves to my will as naturally as can be, because of course it does. This is what I've always been, part of myself I've always had. I move it with the same instinct that moves my tendrils, I see it as easily as I see with my eye. But even with all of it here, able to be shaped however I choose, I don't have the slightest idea of what to do with it. Like a giant mound of clay, sitting untouched in front of an uninspired artist, I feel the fullness of myself yet I fail to know what any of it should be. Thump. That thought is more than a little frustrating. I really don't know what this means, do I? Thump. It's beautiful, I know that much, but what am I supposed to do with it all? I suppose I can use it to cast spells, and hopefully to disrupt the spells of others, but so what? Perhaps things will be clearer when I am more fully myself. This pathetic channel through which I pull mana feels more like a wall. It can be wider. It needs to be. I need to pull myself into the war, thwack. My attention is smashed back into the physical as I find myself suddenly face first in the solid dirt of the road. My lungs gasp desperately for a breath, inhaling dust and detritus only to cough it all back out again and try again. A sharp pain and wet feeling in my nose indicates that it's damaged, possibly broken. I roll over onto my back, clutching my face and rapidly attempting to sit up and try and figure out what just attacked me. Immediately, an unrelenting wave of lightheadedness forces me back to the dirt. I finally get some air into my lungs, checking for threats with my soul sense only to find the people around me all seem more worried than hostile. Hey, are you all right? One of the people around me asks. A few deep breaths later, I find myself able to answer. What happened? I ask, hand slowly letting go of my spear. I don't know. You were just working around and then you suddenly fell over. Did you trip? Did I trip? No, I don't think I did. Actually, given the burning feeling in my lungs, I might have taken my focus a little bit too seriously. I think I forgot to breathe. I'm fine, thank you, I mumble, embarrassed. Waiting a short while to catch my breath, I slowly stand up and resume my walk to the guild, face red. Okay, maybe that's a little too much focus. How long had I been walking without breathing? The rest of all that. I don't have any idea how to process that. I'm some kind of big, blue mass in addition to everything else. I look down at my tiny hands, clenching and unclenching them. I hate this stupid body. How did I end up in such a pathetic vessel? Whatever. No sense dwelling on what I can't change. I'll just focus on drawing that mana for now, I think. And breathing. Best not to pass out again. At least my walk is almost over. The guild pops into my senses, a cacophony of familiar and powerful souls that always whets my appetite a little. Not that I have any intention of eating my comrades, but it is what it is. The feeling puts me in a better mood. It's refreshing. The ache of Angelian's death still pulses inside me, but I no longer feel so helpless, so angry. I can do this. I have friends and family and a way forward. The receptionist looks up and waves to me when I enter the guild. Vita, there you are, she says. You're needed for a mission. Have you seen Penelope? Ugh, that figures. Well, I guess I can't complain. There's no better way to get stronger than the forest. Yeah, I have, I answer. Want me to go get her? I don't know when she'll drop by on her own. She gives me a once-over. How about you drop by the medical ward real fast? You look like you just lost a fight with a runaway wagon. I blink. Oh, right. Between the cut side of my face and my possibly broken nose, I'm probably a bit of a bloody mess. I just kinda forgot about the pain, but getting it healed is probably a good idea. I nod and make my way towards the healers as instructed. Claretta and the guy who feels like roots in soil are both in the room, along with the broken Salt Fulvia and a myriad of other patients. Soil Soul is asleep, but Claretta sings clearly and crisply, a wordless and beautiful tune that starts sealing up the cut in the side of my face as soon as I enter the room. My nose, however, just starts hurting more. Ow! I yelp, holding my face. Claretta glances at me and stops singing, her slow exhalations betraying a deep and full-bodied exhaustion. Vita, right? If that hurt you probably have something broken. The spell is complex enough to try to set it, but it's faster to do so manually. May I see your nose? I nod, approaching and bending down a little so the wheelchair-bound Claretta can get a closer look. The deeply tanned-skinned and dark-haired woman stares at my face with complete dispassion, arm moving up as if to do something for a moment before she grimaces and returns it to her side. She still has no hands or feet, though the beginning of wrists and ankles seem to be starting to form. Hopefully she'll finish healing soon. Jeremy. Claretta snaps. Wake up for a second, I need someone with fingers. A comically large pile of blankets in the corner starts to move, the soil-soiled man emerging and blearily blinking the sleep out of his eyes. I'm up, he mumbles, yawning as he makes his way over to me. Geez. What wall did you piss off? Do I seriously look that bad? Can you just fix it or whatever? I grumble awkwardly. I need to go grab Penelope. He shrugs, grabbing my forehead with one hand and snapping my nose back into place with the other. Another gout of blood gushes out for a moment before he stops it with a spell, the pain quickly vanishing. There you go, he yawns. Tell Penelope I said hi. You need anything else, Claretta? No, she answers blandly. Rest well, Jeremy. He nods, waves, and returns to collapse inside his fortress of fluff. The biomancers here must be getting run pretty ragged, still. I should probably head out and let them work, but I can't help but find my attention drawn to Fulvia's damaged soul. I stop by her bed before departing, trying to determine how fast she's been healing. It's really not much. If I couldn't look at the soul down at a ridiculously detailed level, it wouldn't look like she was healing at all. I check around with my soul sense, trying to determine if anyone is paying much attention to me. Only Claretta seems to care. She's not currently looking at me, so I pull out a shard of myself and crush it, sprinkling the raw soul energy over Fulvia's spirit. The reaction is immediate. Her soul pulls in the power almost exactly like my revenants do. Fulvia doesn't feel dead, though. Perhaps this is just how damaged souls react. Either way, the shard dust heals her considerably. I can probably just fix her. It feels like a wretched joke to be put in charge of her, Claretta says, causing me to jump a little. A series of bars jutting out the sides of her wheelchair allow her to move around a bit even without hands, and she's managed to sneak up on me with them. I was just looking out for her. Bah, souls are distracting. Unknowing or uncaring about my surprise, Claretta simply continues to talk. She's certainly not going to want to see my face if she wakes up, the crippled biomancer says, an utterly humorless smile on her lips. Yet they commanded me. Can you believe it? I just about had to threaten the higher-ups to stop them from giving me a fucking medal. I barely know this woman, and I don't know why she's talking to me about this. Maybe because I helped rescue her. It's odd to be in a position where others respect me. It's one thing to be respected because of mind control. It's a very different and very strange feeling to have done something to earn it. Why is that? I ask. She laughs, a sound full of despair. Her musical soul still tears at itself, roiling in unceasing hatred. Well, they said it's unprecedented for a team to survive in the forest for months on end. They are just so fucking proud of me for keeping her alive against all odds. Heroic, I think was the word used. What a fucking joke. I glanced down at her, trying to decide if I should respond to that. I've been told I'm not exactly the best person for sympathy or advice in situations like these. It doesn't look like I need to say anything, thankfully. She's not looking at me, eyes locked on the unconscious face of her teammate. She ate us, Claretta continues. Over and over. Because I let her, I enabled her. I knew that she knew I was the reason her meals never went away. So she ate Fulvia instead of me. She would bite my friend's arms off, and I would regrow them because if I did, maybe she wouldn't come for me next. It's not your intentions being deemed as heroic, it's your results, I say. That's how it works. You did save her, in the end. I did, Claretta agrees. Even though she begged me to let her die. But a hero. I was a coward. I was afraid of death and afraid of being alone. That's the only reason why she is alive. Maybe she'll recover, maybe she can live a normal life after all this. But I don't get to take credit for that. I shouldn't even get to see it. I say nothing, once again unsure how to respond. Some nobles in a mining town got their arms and legs bitten off, Claretta says suddenly. Probably a monster, they say. But nobody can find it, so I hear your team is getting sent out. I shrug. Makes sense to me. I knew I was going on a mission already. It's her, Claretta insists, eyes wide in my direction but not seeing me at all. It's that child. That thing. I know it is. You have to kill her this time. Please. She's going to be even more dangerous than last time. She'll keep getting smarter, keep getting stronger. You have to kill it now. She's not the only one getting more dangerous, I say. We'll be ready this time. Claretta nods firmly. With a tendril, I pull out another 2 shards, judging them to likely be enough. I'm a bit leery of using my soul like this, considering how much work I go through to get this power in the first place, but I smash them anyway and sprinkle them on Fulvia's shattered soul. They'll just grow back when I eat. A tense 30 seconds or so pass, and then the woman finally starts to stir. Her soul is still a total mess, but it doesn't need to be fully intact to function, and I don't want to waste any more shards than I have to on this. A look of absolute horror creeps up Claretta's face as she watches her former teammate squirm slightly on the cot. She doesn't quite wake up yet, but she probably will soon. It's enough to enrapture the biomancer. Taking advantage of her distraction, I quickly excuse myself from the medical ward and, more importantly, the conversation. I quickly head back to the immortality lab, practicing my mana control on the way. Strolling downstairs, I'm disappointed to find that Vitamin does not jump into my arms from above as she usually does. Instead, she's lying on a table, Margaret standing over her and drawing tattoos on her skin. "Hey, guys," I say. "Hi, Mom." Vitamin chirps back happily. "Don't move," Margaret snaps at her. "Hello, Vita." "I'm afraid I've got to steal Penelope," I announce. "We've got a guild job." "Ugh, what terrible timing," Penelope complains, emerging from one of the side rooms. "Nothing for it, I suppose. Let's—" Her words cut off as she looks at me, said look quickly turning into a glare. After a moment she rushes forward and grabs my face by the chin, pulling me closer. "Oh woo!" I grunt in surprise. Her stare is intense and unblinking, and behind her gaze I feel her thoughts moving a mile a minute. "Your eyes," Penelope mutters. "They didn't used to be blue." Chapter 80. My eyes are blue. "How are the pupils?" I ask immediately. "Pupils?" Penelope mutters, pulling my face in closer. "They seem normal. Perhaps slightly vertically ovoid, but not enough that anyone will notice." "Why? What do you know about this?" "My soul is a big blue eye with a vertical slit pupil," I explain. "So if my real eyes are becoming blue too, that's my first guess as to what's happening. My eyes used to be green, right? Do you think people will notice?" "Yes and yes," Penelope grumbles. "Probably not most people, but the team will. Your family too, but you can just tell them the truth." "I mean, I don't know the truth. I've been practicing pulling mana out a lot, and my mana is blue. Sort of. It feels blue in the same way souls feel like they have colors. Anyway, that's about the only super relevant thing I did since you last saw me, unless getting into a fight to the death counts." Penelope blinks incredulously at me, then sighs. "Of course you mentioned that as an afterthought. Explains the blood on your face, I suppose. Who was your unlucky victim?" "Nah, don't worry. That's all my blood." "How reassuring," Penelope answers flatly. "I shall sleep soundly tonight. Anyway, if the team asks you can blame it on me. It's not like they can get any more insufferable about the modifications you told them I was making." "Ugh, I'm sorry. Are they bothering you about that?" I genuinely did not realize they would make such a big deal about it. "It's fine," Penelope sighs, waving me off. "And not something I ever expected an apology for. Still, I am an expert at ignoring stupid, ignorant opinions. It isn't a major issue. Now, other than your recent death battle, are there any other shocking revelations you'd like to unveil before you forget?" I think for a moment. "Is there anything I've been meaning to tell Penelope but forgot about? The souls inside your lobotomized rats are all wrong. They don't grow anymore. They still function like souls, and they still seem to be involved in controlling the body, but they've become stagnant." Penelope's eyes go wide. Oh, my goodness. So there is a link? Soul growth. Yeah, I confirm. I've been thinking about it for a while. The Mistwatcher puts souls in us, but we don't need them to live. They grow bigger as we grow, and it just eats them when we die. We're like a fucking farm. Penelope frowns, tapping her chin. That checks out, I suppose. All the more reason to never die. Though to be fair, it's not as if we don't get anything out of the deal. I'm not sure how one would channel mana without a soul. I guess that makes sense, but old Misty still seems like an asshole to me. What else? There are some other things I haven't told her, right? Oh yeah, also when I focused really hard on channeling mana I entered a seemingly infinite expanse from where I apparently pull it all, and then I fell over because I forgot to breathe. And after nearly killing me Capita heavily implied that her gang is trying to assassinate the king. The king? Wait, your fight was with, also, a High Templar walked up to me and said that the Inquisitors are coming. Penelope stares at me. I stare back. Is that all? She asks. Are you done? I think about that for a moment, sucking on the inside of my cheek. Penelope crosses her arms, tapping her foot. Yes, I conclude. I'm pretty sure that's all of it, at least for now. She lets out a huff. Okay, then oh, right. I interrupt. I fixed Fulvia's soul. Well, mostly. Heavily damaged souls seem to absorb raw spirit dust the same way that revenants do. Penelope takes a deep breath in, letting it out slowly. Okay. She says, doing her best to sound only slightly exasperated. Well, that's all very interesting, but we should probably be getting back to the guild. The Inquisition is going to be bad news. I was afraid of that, I grumble, following after her as she walks towards the exit. Bye, Mom. Vitamin calls out. I said quit moving. Margaret snaps. Bye, you guys. Good luck while I'm gone. I respond, waving at them both. So what's the Inquisition's deal? While you shouldn't go around saying this to anyone, it's an open secret that the Inquisition is the Church's animancy branch. Not, ostensibly, for any sort of nefarious purposes, however. As you may know, at least a small modicum of animancy is necessary for detecting animancy. It's an amusing conundrum. Animancy is against the law, but in order to be even remotely capable of enforcing the law, animancy must be used. I scowl. So at the very least, these guys are going to have the ability to see souls? I ask. At the very least, Penelope agrees. They are not supposed to be capable of much else, but I wouldn't be overly surprised if they are. Power like yours is a bit too tempting. You are going to need to avoid them entirely either way, that much is certain. Thankfully, there are exceptionally few Inquisitors. A bit over a decade and a half ago, that entire branch of the Templars was gutted when the High Inquisitor at the time was found guilty of, shall we say, loosely interpreting the doctrine on animancy. Over half the organization was compromised, and the loss of personnel and reputation is something they've yet to recover from. And how am I going to avoid them? They are looking for me, aren't they? I ask. You're the scout, Penelope dismisses. You managed to avoid half the monsters in the forest, so you figure it out. They have no official capacity to investigate yet, which means if the Inquisitors are being sent it's because they're hoping to catch you in the act. They may not be able to run an official inquiry, but they can bypass most of the bureaucracy we're tying them up with if an Inquisitor personally witnesses you performing animancy. You have more than just your own soul in your body, and it probably counts, so you need to make sure you are never seen. I nod glumly. This might make saving all the souls inside me a little more difficult. Let's try to hurry up on this immortality thing, I sigh. Penelope chuckles dryly, locking up the lab as we exit. Well, it's a good thing you said so, because before now I was planning on taking things as slow as, a beeping noise suddenly cuts her off, causing her to scowl and fish around her collarbone. Penelope? Lord Erebus's voice asks from the necklace when she pulls it out. Johann, Penelope grumbles in answer, weaving a silence bubble around us. What do you need? Penelope. There you are. You weren't answering. I've been horribly worried. I told you already, Johann, my experiments are too delicate to be letting rogue mana signatures invade my lab. I won't get calls when I'm working. What do you need? Well, would you believe that one of my highest profile suppliers has invited us to have a meal with... No, Johann, Penelope snaps immediately. You know I hate those things. I know, but he's quite the family man, and I feel it would be somewhat of a faux pas for me to show up without my fiancée. I'm sorry, Penelope, but you know how delicate these things are. I'm being called to the Hunters Guild, Johann. I won't even be in the city. I'm sure your supplier will understand. A mission? Penelope, but your hand isn't healed yet. And the hunters lately have been dying by the dozens. You can't, I can't. What? Penelope hisses into her necklace. What I can't do is sit around and eat fancy dinners with rich old fools while my city is in shambles and my country is under siege. I am a Vesuvius. I slaughter Vaka's enemies and uplift its kings. Do not presume to tell me that parading around as your accessory is more important than how I choose to use my time. Penelope is red in the face by the end of her tirade, hand clenched like she would crush the metal bead at the end of the necklace if she was able. Lord Erebus is silent for a good while after that, to the point I almost think he's ended the communication. Is that what you think I have been doing? He answers eventually. Penelope, you've barely spoken to me since you got that research lab you got injured on your last mission and you didn't tell me. And who says I have to tell you? She demands. No one, Penelope. But why aren't you? Is it not reasonable for me to be worried about that? I love you, Penelope. I just want to see you from time to time. She sighs, some of the anger deflating out of her. I'm sorry, Johann. I know you do. Now just isn't a good time. But I will work on keeping you better informed. Okay? A sigh is heard from the other end. All right. Be safe. Of course I will, Johann. I can't be going and getting myself killed before I'm immune to it. Oh, and you may wish to know that the broken Drakens have implied plans to usurp the king while attempting to recruit a certain member of my team. You think you can use that to our advantage? That's... Yes, probably. I'll see what I can find. Thank you, Penelope. Goodbye, Johann. She tucks the necklace back into her shirt and sighs, seeming suddenly exhausted. You okay? I ask. Penelope chuckles, shaking her head as we resume our journey back to the Hunters Guild. You're a lot like him, you know, she says. Very focused. Though while Johann sees people as a series of tasks to accomplish, you tend to not see people at all. I scowl, confused and offended. That's a weird way to respond to me asking if you're okay, I grumble. I'm trying my best. She smiles, squeezing my shoulder with a still growing hand. Thank you, she says. Somehow, I like being one of the people you try for. You joke about it, but it feels like you're the only person who understands me and still actually wants to be around. I tilt my head. You're welcome. I hedge. Why wouldn't I want to be around you? In addition to all of the prior reasons I have given you, Johann and I are using you in a scheme that will hopefully corrode the political power of the Templars enough to loosen their control on the metal trade, Penelope says. It's been going on more or less since you met him, but I declined to mention anything until now. I nod. Less power for Templars sounds good to me. Okay, I say. Neat. Penelope laughs. You're not even surprised, are you? Or angry? You made me promise to tell you things like this and I kept it a secret and you're not even angry? I shrug. You told me now. So, that's progress. Why would I be angry? You're not gonna hurt me or my family, so anything you do is fine. She laughs some more, shaking her head. See? This is what I mean. You seem like a fool, but you just have your own personal logic. And it's beautiful. I don't have to worry about what you'll think of me. I really can just tell you anything. I can speak my mind. So why don't you? I ask. She stops walking, staring towards me for a moment. Then she shudders. Habit, I suppose. Do you ever? Another pause as she gathers her thoughts. I let her, saying nothing. When I was young, I would kill things for fun, Penelope manages eventually. My talent developed quite early, and, well, I was like a child with a new toy. Insects, at first. But it escalated. Rapidly. The sight of watching something fall apart from the inside out is, beautiful to me. But when I showed that to my parents, well, they were disgusted. Of course they were, really. They thought they were raising a watcher-damned serial killer. They said they loved me, of course, but even if that was true, even though they did everything they could for me, it was in service to what they wanted me to be. Not what I was, because they hated that. Feared it. Even a child could tell they did. My grandfather was different, but not much better. He saw opportunity in me, the chance to continue the true lords of Vesuvius. I was more or less raised by biomancy tutors from then on, and, well, my parents never complained about me being too busy to be around. She huffs, pulling at one of the loopy swirls of hair on the side of her head. You don't really understand any of this, do you? She asks. Parents, social pressure, obligations. Your life never had these things. No, I agree honestly. I don't really get it. But I can tell it hurts you. She swallows, nodding slowly. Right. Well, most of that doesn't really matter anyway. I was taught to be a healer and a proper lady. I admit to liking some of that. Magic is beautiful. Solving problems, discovering new spells, advancing knowledge. I am glad I was taught those things. But every single other aspect of myself I have to hide. I knew, at the Hunter's Guild, that I would be found out. That I would be hated. That my guise as the beautiful and intelligent Third Lady Vesuvius would collapse and reveal the person underneath that just wants to watch a creature's skin boil and pop as it screams in agony. But you found out, and you don't care. Worse, this is the part you understand. Even if my whole background is nonsense to you. This you get, don't you? A grin forms on my lips. The only thing more satisfying than watching revenants scramble to fulfill my orders is the feeling of a life sliding down my throat and dissolving into raw power, I tell her. And it is so horribly infuriating that I know I'll end up regretting it if I just do that to everyone we meet. She grins back, slightly at first but growing wider and wider as she speaks. Right? She agrees. Why can't I just kidnap everyone I don't like and use them to figure out how many plagues I can incubate in a single person before they ultimately expire? Yeah, so, it turns out people get whiny about human experimentation, I say shrugging. Who knew? Ugh, but why? Penelope groans. How am I supposed to figure out how a spell affects a human without using humans? Rats only go so far. We could skip so much wasted time and effort by skipping to human trials. Yeah, well, I bet I could solve our animancy problems really easily if I could just bring an army of revenants to deal with Capita and the Inquisition. We're trying to cure death. Why is that bad? It turns out people get whiny when you try to cure death, too, Penelope complains. Be it immortality or undeath or anything. Massive swaths of morons will cry no you can't, death is a part of life for all these reasons I made up. It's wrong to prevent death, and definitely not the ultimate goal of all medicine. You overstep your bounds, wah wah wah. We both burst into laughter, a comfortable and joyful moment of shared frustration finally let out. I don't know if I've ever felt her this relaxed before. Things sure would be easier if we could just kill the people who thought like that. Penelope sighs. But alas, that would be wrong. Yep, I agree, nodding glumly. That would be wrong. Fun to think about, but really, it would make me feel like shit. Indeed, Penelope confirms. I often wonder if I'm a psychopath, so it's nice to remind myself once in a while that I probably would feel terrible if I did that. Probably? I ask, raising an eyebrow. She shrugs. Probably. We both giggle a little at that, recognizing it for both the joke and the fear it is. And so we go to slay monsters, Penelope intones, lest we become monsters ourselves. And also because they are delicious, I add. And also that, Penelope snorts, assuming you are an uncouth gremlin whose appetite defies all reason and sense. I need to teach you the meat-treating spell, if only so you'll stop bothering me about it. I gasp, jumping in front of her. Would you? Oh, that would be amazing. Of course I will, she scoffs. We can start. Well, actually, you don't suffer mental backlash, so I suppose we can start today. I'll teach you on the trip. I jump forward and hug her tightly. Best friend ever. I cheer. Meat-treating spell. Yes. I will never be hungry again. Never. Yes, Penelope mumbles, squirming uncomfortably under my iron grip. Her soul starts playing all sorts of rapid, chaotic notes, so I give it a hug too. Eep. She squeaks, in one of the most amazingly un-Penelope-like sounds I have ever heard. What are you doing? Soul hug, I inform her simply, looking up at her amusingly red face. I'm not normally much of a hugger, but for some people I have to make an exception. Penelope is one of those people, now. Still, I have mercy on her, eventually giving my friend one last squeeze before releasing her so we can restart our trip to the guild. To my endless amusement, Penelope's face stays a bit red the entire way. I have no idea how to handle the things she's currently feeling, though. Maybe the hug wasn't the best plan. Tope continued. Thanks for listening.